Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to this episode of The Advocate's Chair. This is a place and a space where voices rise, power is shared, and the work of transforming systems is developed and amplified. So I'm Neonta Williams. I am the founder of Black Alabamians for Education, and I'm so super excited. I know I say so super excited all the time, but when I say it today, I genuinely mean it. Today, I got my girl in the building. She's laughing at me already, y'all. I don't even know what she's laughing at. LaShundra, look, D, because I put D in front of it, not the, but LaShundra D, Nicole, Antoinette, Richmond, Doctor. Okay. LaShundra D. Richmond is in the building.
Ooh.
Listen, woo, that's
clap.
Okay.
Cute applause. Cute applause.
So listen, LaShundra is not just in the building today because she is LaShundra, but I'm excited to have this conversation with her about our Next Level Leader Fellowship. And so, for the people in the back, I don't know if you have ever been in a situation, particularly as a leader, where you have felt that there was a gap in something around identifying leaders. And so LaShundra and I go way back, had an opportunity to have multiple phone conversations with her about, like, what are we doing, friend? Like, we got to figure this out. And so as my friend, my brilliant colleague would do, she said, friend, I got you. So I am sitting down today with someone who has been the heart of building and the brain and the brilliance of building our curriculum for next level leaders. And so, hey, let's give her applause, y'all. Yeah, she's in the building.
Woo, blow horn.
Welcome, LaShundra. Welcome.
Oh, bless you, sister.
Tell us about you, sister.
Ooh, how much time I got?
How much you want?
I don't need that much.
Okay.
To your listening audience, first, thank you so very much for having me on this platform. Such a needed and timely platform, I would argue, in this season of our lives and just in the world. I am LaShundra D. Richmond, the one and the only. You'll never meet another.
Never.
From the one and the only Bluff City, the 9, the 0, and the 1, Memphis, Tennessee. And I happily and humbly
in the
building. Shout out to Memphis, Tennessee, where we don't bluff. Hashtag home of the Grizzlies. I happily and humbly serve as the program director of Next Level Leaders for Black Alabamians for Education. So that means I happily and humbly serve alongside my very great friend, who's also brilliant and daring and bold and awesome in her own right and is her own trailblazer. And so I am elated to share this space. I'm elated to share this time with you. I am an educator by trade, called to teach, called to impact lives through communities, classrooms, and hallways. And I absolutely love what I get to do as it relates to impart, as it relates to disrupt,
yes,
as it relates to build. I am a natural people connector. I believe in the authenticity of relationships,
yes.
And just the power of knowledge, the power of learning, and being a part of that process of helping individuals over that threshold of learning from not knowing to knowing. I am a third generation educator. I like to tell people I went from playing school as a kid to literally building a profession and a career around nothing but school. That's all I know. And so again, I've just completed my 18th year in education.
Thank
so
you.
I feel like I'm an OG, though. I feel like there's many more miles for me to take, many more steps for me to take. And so super excited. I currently am a resident of the good old Birmingham. I told Neonta literally yesterday she owed me for being here in Alabama, of all the states in the country, for the Lord to send me to Neonta and God had a plan. And they got me here to Alabama. So again, it's been a pleasure to be able to serve the city of Birmingham, the community, and the state as a whole, as I've worked as a school leader, educator, and civic and community leader alongside Neonta.
Yes. So So y'all listen, the brilliance friend, I am so grateful to have you here. Like, I really am. I know you threatened me yesterday and told me that your luggage was at the front door.
Absolutely.
I needed to come and pack your things up.
Absolutely.
And move you on to the next location.
Absolutely.
But we determined it's not going to happen without me going alongside her. So, it is what it is.
Yep. For now.
I mean, you're just brilliant, friend. You're just brilliant. I'm just so grateful. So listen, this fellowship, this Next Level Leader Fellowship, it was born from a vision to invest deeply in the growth of Black leaders or leaders, organizers, and even parent advocates who are not just navigating the system, but we really want people to reshape the system. So my first question, well, actually I already had one. So my first official question for you is, how do you define next level leadership in this moment?
The term or what we're building?
The term.
Okay. Great question. I think ultimately, you have to first kind of break down each of the words. Here's the educator in me. Don't miss a teachable moment. You really have to break down what each word means when you're framing this concept of next level leaders. When you look at, what does next mean? Next mean what's up ahead, what's to come, futuristic. And so when you think about this notion of next, I would argue you're literally framing something that is for what's to come, for what's up ahead. You're progressive in thoughts. You're already imagining the possibility of a tomorrow, and you're trying to build towards that. As much as we like to say, stay present, stay in the moment, I think that also robs of the power of dreaming and being curious, and being intentional around creating what should tomorrow, what should our futures, what could our futures look like when we're looking at how do we unpack this whole notion of next. Of course, level can look at, promotion, elevation, building up, ascension. And so when you're putting those two words, how are we looking forward? How are we looking towards tomorrow in a notion of the movement of upward mobility, upward movement, ascension, promotion, elevation? So not looking to be stagnant, not looking to be complacent, not trying to recreate what was, not trying to be antiquated, but really being innovative and progressive in thought and in action.
Yes.
So you have this next level. And then, of course, leader. What is a leader? There's so many definitions as it pertains to what are leaders, what is a leader, and then what is leadership. I would argue, leadership, when you're looking at the suffix ship, meaning the state of a leader, really looking at the posture.
She's such an educator, y'all.
You so fun.
So for real.
You're looking at the posture, and so a part of how do you help build leaders, you have to look at the posture of a leader. You have to train and cultivate around like your heart posture, your character. What does that mean to show up for others, to serve, to glean, to lead, to learn? And so when you put it all together, next level leadership, the hope is to build, to curate, to innovate around how do we collectively as leaders in the state of leadership, move forward, move upward, and get others to follow in our footsteps in such a way that, again, brings people along towards something that they've never even probably dreamed of, imagined. But I would argue that's our role as leaders, and definitely as next level leaders, to always be thinking about what the future holds, what's up ahead, and how we can empower, equip, and inform our people to get there with us.
Yes, that is so good. The thing that I'm thinking about is, how do we even get here to start having this sort of deep dive into why we need leaders? And you and I both know that we both have the privilege of sitting at a multitude of tables.
Yeah.
And one of the tables that I sit at, I'm like, shit, we ain't got enough people with courage.
Yep.
Like, where your courage at?
Yep.
I'm just trying to, you know what? I think we need to I want to dig around it a little bit more because I want us to talk about what and how, what were some things that we felt were non-negotiables when it came to defining what do we want people to walk away with from this program. So listen, y'all, I'm sitting here with my girl, Lashundra D. Richmond. We've already had a wonderful first, 5-10 minute conversation. We're going to go to a quick break and we'll be right back with this where I left off.
Okay,
Shit, where they at?
Where they at?
All right, guys, back with my girl Lashundra D. Richmond, friend. In other words, friend. Like, she and I really, really coined this friend thing before the world started calling everybody friend. That's not really a friend.
That
like
part.
The term is used really, really loosely today, much like the word leader, right?
Right.
For our leaders, but without the ship behind it, right? You can lead people anywhere, but without the ship, where are we going? So we were on the brinks of having a conversation. I'm really curious, when you were building out this curriculum, when you heard my plea, you heard my cry, you heard my frustration around, we need to do something to build leaders. I know you went into your brilliant brain and you started thinking. So I'm curious to know, as you were developing, how did you determine, or not necessarily how, but what were some non-negotiables for you when it came to this fellowship?
I mean, I would argue, not to take away from the brilliance that God has given me, but a lot of that brilliance, I would argue, with any innovator or creator is rooted in curiosity, and a person's own wonderings, right? And so a lot of what went into the curriculum design stage was rooted in my own questions, my own wonderings that if I couldn't get answered from others, or myself, like how could I present them in a different space with the possibility of being answered. And so when you're thinking about the non-negotiables, you want to put yourself in the seat. What questions do I have? What wonderings do I have? What roads have I traveled that are still hazy, that led me to some closed doors, or some missed opportunities, or some moments that I was just like, that ain't it. Try again, God. And you want to package it in such a way that the non-negotiables are rooted in authenticity, for sure, voice, power. You want to lead. You want to come into a space empowered, and you want to leave with knowing you have power, right? Or the opposite.
Say that again.
You want to come into listen. You want to come into a room empowered, and you want to leave a room knowing you have power.
Yes, God.
Or the opposite. You want to come into a room knowing that you have some form of power, and then leave that room knowing how to properly place that power, right?
Yes.
And so all of those: authenticity, voice, power, and then the freedom to be yourself, the freedom to feel, the freedom to be angry, the freedom to have those questions and those wonderings, and to come into a space like, I don't know. I thought I did, but I don't know, or I never knew.
Yeah.
And to feel seen, to feel valued, to feel heard, or to be able to just sit back and glean, say nothing, and heal.
Yeah.
Like, I wanted the fellowship. I wanted the backdrop of the fellowship to just be a space where leaders, whether they knew they were leaders or not, could come in and shake off all of the woes of the worlds, of the pressures, of their own self-doubts, and be able to glean, to learn, to ask their questions, to feel safe. And again, at the end of the day, know that this was coming from an authentic voice that also had walked similar paths with them. So this fellowship wasn't, how sometimes we create things as for clientele that we ourselves have never used the product. I wanted this fellowship to be where they knew, from how we presented, from the facilitators we put in front of them, from the different tasks that were given. Okay, somebody done been somewhere.
Yeah.
Somebody done picked up some nugget, because this is my life. This is my world.
Right.
This is very relatable. It's personable. And I wanted the fellows and I wanted the curriculum to be very clear when you're talking about those non-negotiables.
Yeah.
As I went through that design process.
So this makes me think of another question that I have. So we are now 2 cohorts in.
Yep.
One graduated and one very close to graduating, and maybe about to have graduated at this point. But what themes emerged across the cohorts that spoke to the current needs of leaders that you saw?
They've shifted. So year one, I wrote it just in a blank canvas. Like, I don't know who these people are again. I had just moved to the state of Alabama myself. So
Thank you for coming.
You're welcome. Y'all welcome.
Yeah.
Y'all to the state of Alabama. Y'all welcome. And so I kind of just took everything that I had gathered in just my own experiences and leaders that I had encountered across the board and packaged it. So years one themes was rooted in more or less issues dealing directly with the educational landscape here in Alabama, more locally in Birmingham, and then across the nation. And the work then that was centered around role-alike groups. So what is your role? What is your assignment? And then what is your relationship to this bigger cause? And then another thing was around personal development. Like, how do you show up to the space? How do you show up to the work? Now that we've identified the work, we know your role in the work. How do you show up? And then how you gonna leave?
Yeah.
And so those were like some central things that organically erupted from year one. Year two changed the whole game. One, because of the audience in which we were serving. Two, because of the feedback we had gotten from cohort one to go deeper. And so we split, the curriculum kind of did a split where we had this programmatic piece that was talking about the work, the cause, the mission, policies, right? The advocacy, and all of the jargon that is centered around the educational work and the educational landscape here in the state. But then we did also this look into identity.
Our favorite. That's our favorite. Our favorite.
So as much as I was trying to keep away from that, because
it kept rising.
Neonta did not share, what I don't always share, I am licensed and ordained as a minister. I walk in the office of the Holy Spirit, and I just believe God has called me to sense the spirit of people and be able to touch them where they are at. And so I try to stay away from my identity, because you can't talk about identity without talking about the Bible. Can't talk about the Bible without talking about God and all the things. I was really trying to keep this as educational and rooted in my friend's vision without us having Bible study, without me becoming the life coach and the spiritual advisor in the room. But it just kept popping its head when we were talking about the work, the cause, people's roles and position, their frustration, what they were experiencing. And identity just kept popping. I'm like, oh, I want to touch it, but we finna go there.
And might I just like throw in real quick as you're talking? I'm just thinking about two words. Two thoughts. One, this is the authenticity of doing the work. And then also just trying to be a next level leader genuinely requires you to be able to pivot at any given
moment.
We can't be so rigid and stuck into what we designed to think this is the way and this is the only way. I would contend, and I know you and I both would together, this is what has gotten us into this systemic way of thinking and operating and functioning, which has got us to where we are today. We are so robotic. We are so
mundane,
the way it's been done. This is the way we have to do it. But I think, and you and I both think that brilliance is greater than that. It's greater than like, let me expose you to something, but then when I expose you, you explore.
You
explore and then explode, right? And so you should have this internal implosion.
That's good.
Yeah, see,
explode and explode. That's so good.
And you have this internal implosion where you get into this identity work, because you're saying, because the reality is most of us know who we are, and we know, but sometimes we don't have the courage to vocalize who we are. And then that hinders us from being truly a next level leader. And that really differentiates us from, and this is when I had a question I wanted to ask you, even in this vein of conversation, like, so with what you shared and what we're talking about now, what makes our next level leader program or cohort or fellowship different than other leadership programs? Because you and I have both been to several. What would you say?
I think we're saying it. I mean, what also happened organically was that I was forced to become the case study.
Oh, Ooh.
So I had to show up as the naked leader in the room. I had to show up as the next level leader, willing to be vulnerable, willing to be humble, willing to share, because these people was wanting it. They was thirsting for someone that looks like them way beyond the box that we check on an application.
The alphabets behind our name.
Listen, they didn't care about any of that. They were looking for somebody to be like, child, I cried too. That hurt. And how did I navigate that and to do it from a place again of just an authentic voice? So I was forced myself to say, okay, curriculum is good, great blueprint, great skeletal, but how do you now humanize these words?
Yes.
So I had to become the prototype and the poster child for what I was teaching and presenting. And what happened, like it always does, it transferred.
Yeah.
And that lit a fire into the people to then be vulnerable, to be humble, to share, to cry, to emote. And now it's open game. Yeah. Now we talking about what we need to talk about in terms of the issues, how people really feel, how it's really messed up out here in these streets.
Yeah.
And how who we have called and touted as our leaders have failed us.
So listen, that's a good place for us to pivot to another break. We getting ready to pivot to a break, but we coming back to that. Like, who are these leaders that have failed us, right? Y'all, this is my girl. I'm Neonta Williams with Black Alabamians for Education, but we are sitting here in the advocate's chair having a conversation with the one and only LaShundra D. Richmond, and we'll be right back. All right. We're back. Let me stop. Y'all know we here. You see us, you hear us. Let me get back to my girl.
Right.
So listen, you left off talking about the leaders that fail us. And I posed a question about what makes us different. So listen, I'm about to lean back and let you take it off.
No, I think what makes us different, as we were talking about, is just the intentionality around creating a space, an authentic space where other leaders could come. And what ended up happening when leaders began to share and open up and the space just like blew up was that we started to identify what is and what is not when it comes to leaders and leadership. And the individuals in the room were able to also distinguish between a leader, someone that may have just been assigned, and someone who may have wear the title, and then the actual state of leadership and the difference between the two. Because now you in the tension. Now, as they say, you in the tension of the text, because you're looking at two separate buckets, two separate categories of where we have navigated these spaces, and whether it's been in our employment roles or in the church or in the community, we have trusted in leaders that failed to show up and model leadership. Yeah, and so without definition, though, we thinking like, well, you carried the cross, you carried the title. What were we lacking? Well, we were lacking, again, this notion and this clearly defined concept of the state and the ship of leadership, right? Ship being, again, motion, ship being movement. We ain't moving.
Listen, when you talk about a ship, friend, what's on the ship? What should be on there? What are some things you should take off the ship? And because ships are constantly in motion. Constantly.
It's a means of transportation, right? So everything about leadership should be rooted in movement, action,
transferring. You saying it's a mode of transportation. I don't want you to move from that. I'm thinking about, if it's a mode of transportation, where are you going?
People.
Who are you taking with you? How are you taking them with you? And what are you taking with you? What are you displaying? What are you listening to along the way? What are you not listening to along the way? I think about, I just drove back from New Orleans, right? And so it's like, okay, am I having a conversation with people on the way back? What do I have in my trunk? What am I stopping for? It's movement. So even in leadership, it's the same thing. Same thing. Okay, I'm sorry.
So that in itself is mind-blowing when you have never taken the time as an individual to unpack that. And to be able to distinguish. I would argue what makes me, and I would argue I'm a great leader, but what makes me, thank you, girl. Thank you. I would argue that. But I would argue what makes me a great leader because I sat down, first of all, with myself and unpacked who I am. But then, two, I've been able to distinguish the leaders and those in leadership. Those that have titles and those that have influence. Those that are making an impact and those that are just pissing folk off, right? And so once you're able to do that, you're like, okay, I know now what not to do. I know how not to identify. I also know how not to show up. And so now I can shift and put my power, my passion, and my pursuit into this notion of how do I want to show up? How do I want to lead people? How do I want to move people? How do I want to serve people? How do I want to glean from people? How do I want to influence people? All that requires moving from one place to the next, and this notion of I don't want to just be a leader. I want to operate in leadership. Right? And you come into a space. That's a difference, right? It don't matter about my title. I can be in the back, on the back pew and have influence, right? It doesn't matter where you place me, because now you're now pushing people from this pursuit of a title. You're pushing people from just an assignment, and you're pushing them into a purpose of, if your posture is leadership, that don't change. I don't care if you're in the house. I don't care if you're in the street. I don't care if you're in the boardroom or the back room. You're operating in a state of constant movement rooted in leadership. They ain't got to ever call you a leader. They can call you your name, because that's what God calls you. That's enough. But the posture, and so when we're talking about next level leaders, it's this shift into a posture again of leadership. This constant, never stopping, but ever evolving posture and placement that keeps people growing individually and collectively. And so that's what sets, I would argue, our fellowship apart, because you get all of that, but you get it intentionally. So it ain't random. It ain't coincidental. You know, it's all intentional, because the visionary of the fellowship, the writer of the curriculum has done that work. First and foremost. That's so true. And so, God will call you out. He'll call you out. So we can't be fraudulent in this work. We can't be, so it's more than just words on a paper. We humanized them. We made them digestible, and then we forced and challenged people to live them out. What does character mean to you? What does integrity mean? What does it mean to be in a room and you command the attention, right? That you make folk look your way, right?
You walk in the room and you are the thermostat. You're not the thermometer. You're not, you shift atmosphere. You set the temperature.
You do all of that. What does that mean in today's time? And how have our people, how have we been robbed of such progression, because those people that we trusted didn't go through a next level leaders. They didn't have a visionary leader like yourself who was thinking about them in the next. We were just seeing them for their right now. And we were okay with this notion of, okay, well, we got it. We got this space. We got this title. Now what? And so the reality of it is, I think our fellowship sets us apart, because again, we do all those things collectively. And we force people to see themselves where they are, and then decipher what their next is going to look like.
And what do they want to do? Right? What exactly do you want to do? Like, what does that look like, for you? And so I just, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful.
I am
too. I'm not going to cry. But I'm not. When people say that, like they really want to cry, right?
What you crying for?
Because I am grateful to have a person like you, a friend like you, an individual like you that is so in tune to, as my guy Cat Williams say, the number one player, the star player.
Absolutely.
In tune with the star player.
Absolutely.
And honestly, that is what a lot of people are lacking when it comes to really operating in purpose and being the best version of yourselves that we could be. And I said I'm not going to cry, because I'm also thinking about the fact that you've been with us, since the inception of Black Alabamians. We are in our 9th year of existence. You, in fact, helped me in an apartment room with large Post-its on the wall, right out of Nashville, Tennessee. In fact, Tennessee. We were hungry, as always. But from a physical standpoint and a spiritual standpoint around, God, what can we do to really pour into your people? I was contemplating, I've got to go back to Alabama. I need to be at home trying to empower folks at home. And so, when you see Black Alabamians, like it's a whole squad behind us.
Absolutely.
And so I know that one of the other things that is really important about leadership it is this thing that you've mastered around birthing leaders, but then also knowing when it's your time to pivot. And so, you know, unfortunately to our organization, you are pivoting, but I want you to talk about like how you're pivoting away from being the director of the Next Level Leader program that I don't even like taking credit for co-creating. Like, I was a visionary around something needed to be done, but your brilliance created this. But talk to me about how you have well equipped us to pivot and what that looks like as a leader.
So check this out. The reality of the pivot is really rooted in obedience. You know, you cannot create leaders and then want to hold it all to yourself.
Ooh, yeah.
Like, that's so hypocritical.
Yeah.
So my plan, whether or not I made it clear to you or not at the very beginning, was if this is going to be dope, then there should be someone that should rise from this.
Yes.
Who can now take on or take over the reins at a later date.
Yeah.
Right? You look at it biblically, you look at it spiritually, this whole notion of preparing the mantle to pass the mantle. We were never called to hoard the mantle.
Yeah.
This was never mine.
Yeah.
Right? I was just a giver. I was just a womb and the incubator of it.
Yeah.
It was not my mission or assignment to raise the child.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a part of leadership, not being a leader, because if it was about just being a leader, I'll hold on to this title as program director, which again, I absolutely love. But this pivoted rooted in how do you know when it's time and how can you now assess your own fruit? Well, I can access.
You gotta have fruit.
You
right?
gotta have fruit, right?
Fruit.
That's the whole name of the game. Fruit, results, right? And numbers don't lie. Results don't lie.
Right.
But to me, to access the success of this is to be able to identify my successor. Be like, oh shoot, it doesn't work.
Yes.
Because guess what?
Yeah.
What has been poured, what has been presented, what has been transferred has now cultivated. At least all you need is one.
Yep.
The giant said all you need is one time.
That's it.
So you have at least identified one person who now you can trust or that you trust, that you have watched grow, evolve, that can now you can sit back and say, man, go have at it.
Yeah.
And that is the work of the missionary.
Yeah.
That is the work of the servant leader. That is the work of servant leadership.
Yeah.
So that ultimately, when you're looking at my fruit, I ain't excited about where it's on a page. I ain't excited about a curriculum. I'm excited that at the end of 2 years, I can share with my boss, my friend, and say, oh, I got my successor. You ain't got to open up no application portal.
And
you ain't got to search high and low. You ain't got to be stressed over who's finna come in and understand the brand, understand me. Because see, that's a whole nother thing around organizational leadership, why things fall, right?
Yeah.
The succession plan or lack thereof. I let my girl know going into this year, listen.
That's it. But I also knew.
Listen, this it. But guess what? I ain't gonna leave you there, right? Because when God speaks to you, he don't speak. There's always an exit before the release, right? And so a release before the exit, rather. And so God had already released me, but started preparing me for the exit. And a part of that was in naming and identifying and then making sure that next person was ready to sit in this seat that I have, again, happily held, that I know you take seriously, so that, again, you don't have to worry about, any gaps. Because that's also what causes organizations to falter, those gaps that go unaddressed, right?
I can just say this to you, and to the listening audience. As a leader, I know my friend likes to call me boss, and I appreciate you have respected me in our friendship. You've respected me as a team member, because I don't like to say employee, but a team member of mine. And you've also respected and carried the vision in such a way that I respect you so much that even when you talk about it, you share with me, here's who I think, is prepared to carry this mantle as a leader, as a boss of an organization, as a founder. You want to be able to trust this next person, that in whatever position it is. And so, again, it's that leadership. It's that consistent movement. It's this thing that I talk about all the time about marrying the vision, but dating the plan. The vision is that we have our Black Alabamians for education with a mission. We have our next level leaders with a mission and a purpose. And so what that looks like and who comes and who's at the helm of that ship, it's going to change. And it should. To your point, when we develop these leaders, we don't want to keep them around. And so, you know, I'm just grateful for how, in my opinion, you have mastered this and you have built something that when you and I are both gone, I'm looking forward to God just, you know, to us being able to sit in other places, maybe sipping on some wine with our legs crossed and looking at the fruit, or even in the sanctuary praising God together
with
and looking at the fruit with our husbands. Can we say that again?
With our husbands.
Y'all heard us say it. I need a husband that recognizes our cuss too, right?
Which was also a part of the pivot.
Which is a part of the pivot. It's definitely a part of the pivot. So, you know, we are preparing to finalize this conversation.
Yeah.
I would love for you to turn to that camera and make your pitch to or your last final. So two things, kind of, what would you say to someone who's interested in applying for this Next Level Leader program or cohort, the next cohort? And then also, if you had to whisper one belief in the ear of the next applicants, what would you say?
So the first thing I would definitely encourage any future applicant to ask yourself this question: are you ready? Are you ready to do the work? Are you ready to put in the work? Are you ready to make a commitment to grow individually? Because that's first and foremost. You cannot help anyone else and we have to do a better job in our community of making this clear. Help yourself first. So that's number one. Asking yourself, are you ready? Like, seriously, to take a journey that's going to blow your mind. The second and last thing I would whisper, and I probably wouldn't whisper because I can't whisper, but I would boldly proclaim to any applicant, any candidate looking to be a part of this fellowship, I would just simply tell them, you know, you are already free. I'm not going to give you anything, or the next presenter or facilitator or director is not going to give you anything that God has not already deposited on the inside of you. Only thing they're going to be able to do is evoke it, activate it, charge you to operate already in the freedom and the purpose that God has already given you. So are you ready?
Y'all heard it. You heard it. Listen, LaShundra D. Richmond, our program director, a brilliant mind of our Next Level Leader cohort. Thank you for working and being a servant leader with Black Alabamians for Education.
Thank you, girl.
Thank you for being a guest in the Advocates Chair. We most definitely gonna have my girl back in the building.
Thank you,
until now, cheers to the chair, and we will see you on the next episode of the Advocates Chair.